What's up, guys? Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of Trainer Talks with Trainer Dave. Joined by my fifth guest on Season 2, Kate Jones. Kate, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely.
So if you could kind of give a quick background to the listeners about yourself and what you do.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I guess I've been a trainer for about 11 years now. So much like you, I started at the YMCA. I started personal training after I had a pretty large physical transformation myself. So, in my younger years and in college, I was pretty in shape. I was an athlete. I've always been an athlete. And then, when college comes around and you're not necessarily moving as much as you should have or would have if you were an athlete, I gained the freshman 15 and then some. So, and then there came a point where, somebody had recommended getting back in the gym, and I was like, yeah, I think I'd like to try that. I'd always enjoyed strength training when I was in high school, and so I thought, yeah, let's get back into the gym. Let's see if we can lose a little bit of this weight. And the transformation was just phenomenal. And not only the physical, obviously, as you know, the mental side of personal training and training your body in that way and learning how to fuel your body correctly and all of that really led to an entire, mind, body, spirit transformation. Yeah. So once I experienced that, I wanted other people to experience it as well. And that just became all consuming for me. Right. So I was working at an oil and gas company at the time doing their accounts receivable, accounts payable stuff. And there just came a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I know I'm meant to do something else. I know I'm meant to share this. And that's when, I kind of made the leap. I had been training at the YMCA while I worked for the oil and gas company. So I would go in, before work and then also after work, trying to gain that clientele and build up there. And then as many personal trainers do, you start to realize it's not really a side gig. It's a full-time thing. It's a full-time thing. Yes. And so I was like, okay, I got to quit this. I got to get into, and go full-time and go all in on myself. And so I quit that job. It was very, very hard. It was a good job. They were good people. But then I started working at Title Boxing, just doing their front desk stuff. I did a little bit of personal training there. But that was kind of my jumping off point. That was kind of like my stepping stone to get me out of my comfort zone working that 8 to 5 job. And then, it was just part-time, but I was also doing a little bit of online training at the time as well. So that kind of got me to the point where I wasn't reliant on that 8 to 5 paycheck, and I was learning how to build, my own business. And then a few months later, the Lord provided, and I was able to go on Optimal Performance. I knew a friend there who was actually moving to Colorado, and so she kind of transitioned her clients to me. So I was fairly lucky in that regard. I didn't have to build my clientele from scratch. I got to come on with, about 5 to 10 clients already, which was a nice solid base for me, and then everything just kind of grew from there. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I wrote here some bullet points. You're kind of jack of all trades. I mean, you're the owner of Foundations Fitness, still in-person training, head powerlifting coach at Friends University, and online coach. So kind of do it all. Yeah,
and I think it's funny because when you start personal training, you think you know where you're going to end up, and you think you know what your niche is, and you think you've got it all figured out. And then as time goes on, and this is something I encourage all trainers, is you need to continue to listen to where your passion lies. Absolutely. And continue to follow that, because if you don't, I think that's kind of what leads to burnout, is you're doing the same thing over and over again every single day, and never really challenging yourself or never really growing. I think if you're not growing, you're dying, and
I think that's something I respect about you, is it seems like you're always challenging yourself and trying different things, and I think that's so important as trainers. Like you said, that way we can keep things fresh and not get burnt out.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
That's awesome. So you kind of went into your background a little bit. Do you have a college degree?
I do. My degree is actually in marketing and management. So I got a business degree from WSU back in 2011. I originally wanted to be an accountant, like your mom.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So I was weird that your mom was my college professor at Butler. Such a small world.
Absolutely.
But I actually got my associates from Butler in accounting, and I went on to WSU fully expecting to get an accounting degree and go into that profession. And when that did not work out, I transitioned to marketing about halfway through at WSU, and it was probably the best decision ever. I loved my marketing classes. I loved my business classes. A lot of it had to do with the professors, I think, and I had
Yeah.
some really, really good professors in that, in that domain. So that really helped me out. But yeah, I do not have an exercise science degree. I did not pursue any of that in college. So yeah, my formal education is actually in business.
Nice. So how applicable do you think that degree is in your grind as a trainer slash gym owner? So maybe not so much as a trainer, but do you feel like the business side of your marketing background, do you feel like that's helped you as a gym owner?
Oh, absolutely. And looking back now, I'm glad I got a business degree because
Yeah.
I feel like I can build my passion for fitness and I can learn all the things I need to learn about the body and how to cultivate habit change and all of these things. Like those are things that, we can learn and we can develop, but the business side of things is something I think a lot of personal trainers struggle with.
Yeah.
Because you can have the most passion in the world for personal training, but if you don't know how to build a business around it, then it's not going to be a sustainable income for you.
Yeah, no. So true. Yeah, I mean I got my degree in health and phys ed myself, and I think yeah, most trainers do end up going the exercise science route, but I feel like yeah, having a background in business is so beneficial. Like I know Anna Kate got her degree in business, and it seems like that's paying off for her. So do you feel like if you had to mentor a new trainer, do you think you would tell them to try to go? What do you think? Do you feel like you even need a college degree to be a trainer?
I get in a lot of trouble for this because being a coach at a university, I still encourage my recruits even to do what's best for them in the long run. And I think for some people, that's not college.
Yeah.
And I had $20,000 in student debt when I left. And looking back now, like, the business degree, yes, it was great for me and actually ended up working out in my favor. But did I need it? Like, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
And if I had to give new trainers any advice, do they need a degree in exercise science? Probably not. I think that foundational knowledge is good, and that's something that I want to continue to get better at. Is just the physiology side of things
Right.
and the anatomy and all of that, because it's something I do struggle with not having that formal education. But I think a lot of people put too much stock into that and not enough stock in I need to gain the experience. I need to work with people. I need to understand that like this textbook isn't going to tell me how to help a client who's struggling with, body dysmorphia
yeah.
or how to create, habit change or whatever. The knowledge that you need is not going to be in a textbook.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the most you really learn is the practical experience. Internships are great. Just getting repetitions at coaching different clients, even if that means starting off at a big box gym.
Yeah.
And then finding a good mentor, I think, can be super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about certifications? What certifications do you currently have?
Currently, a lot of my certifications are actually in the powerlifting realm. I would say the ones that are actually current. I was a American College of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer. I did let that certification lapse because I didn't feel the continuing education was the route that I wanted to continue to go. I felt a lot of the continuing ed classes I was doing, I was learning outdated information,
Right.
which is super frustrating for me because, when you look at data and you look at, all the information that we have, it's typically like 20 years behind because they want scientific data, which I get. Like you want to, be able to study these things and be able to, show the, the effects over time or whatever. And because of that, I feel like the areas of, weight loss or anything that we would deal with in the personal training area, I feel like we just get outdated information too often.
Yeah.
So that was a big struggle for me. But that being said, ACSM was my original certification. I'm also a precision nutrition level 1 coach, which I thought was super helpful. Really good certification on habit change, number one, and then just kind of simplifying the process of nutrition for my clients. And then beyond that, like I said, powerlifting is my main domain right now. So I'm a club coach for USAPL. I'm a state level referee for USAPL, and that's kind of where my passion lies right now. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of pursuing that avenue. My latest certification is in RPR, which is Reflexive Performance Reset. So that is, as you know, all about performance and helping the body move better.
Yeah, nice. So you kind of talked about it a little bit with the ACSM, but like, how applicable do you think the certifications are to, your daily grind as a trainer?
Zero. But again, I will say, I think the foundational knowledge that you gain from a certification like that is important. So,
Yeah.
but again, do you need a degree to go and take, a personal training certification? No. And I think a lot of them have that good baseline knowledge for you. So no matter which one you take, ACSM, ACE, whichever route you choose to go, you're going to get some good foundational knowledge from those courses.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll talk about, you being a gym owner and at Foundations Fitness. But you kind of onboard a lot of new trainers. Do you require certifications at Foundations?
I highly recommend it, and I also recommend that they have liability insurance, which usually requires them to have a certification of some kind. But at the same time, I know that it's all about experience.
Right.
And if you have built up a clientele, then obviously, like you know what you're doing and you've helped a certain amount of people. And I think that's the most important thing for me is when I'm looking at a trainer and if they'd be a good fit is, do you have the experience? Do you have a track record of success? And can you, kind of hold your own?
Yeah, no, well said. Like I think Anna Kate told me her cert is expired as well, but like does she really need it? Like probably not. So yeah, now we're gonna go into like Foundations Fitness, and you being a gym owner. So if you could actually maybe talk about a little bit of your background. I know you talked a little bit about the YMCA Optimal Performance, but I guess how long have you been a trainer for?
About 12 years now.
12 years,
Yeah,
okay.
11 years, yep.
So if you could kind of just talk about the journey all the way up into that led you to open up Foundations Fitness.
Yeah, so after the Y, when I transitioned to Optimal, I worked there for about 5 years. I learned a lot of a large part of who I am and how I approach my clients and retention and building my clientele came from what I learned from my days at Optimal. So I'm super grateful for those days. I also learned what I don't want in that same breath because I was working probably 14 hours a day. We go in at 5 a.m. We don't get done until 8 p.m. And in the beginning, that's super exciting. And you're like, wow, a lot of people trust me and I have all these clients and it's great. And I, at that time, I was building up my boot camp program, which is the Optimal Girl Boot Camp, which was a huge catalyst to my growth as a personal trainer in general and just what it means to create community and, the importance of doing that, especially within the realm of training women in fitness. But towards the end of my time at Optimal, it was during the pandemic, so that hit in, I think it was like February of 2020. That was the worst part of it for us. And I was burnt out. I was just plain burnt out. And we did a really good job, I feel like, at Optimal of not shutting down completely. Like we were trying to do a little bit of in-person private training. Our large groups had to be online, which was super hard for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am not good at yelling at a computer screen.
Right.
It's not my jam. I'm an in-person. I love the energy of group training. So that was just, I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And I took a step back from training in general. I trained some clients online still throughout those next 6 months. But in May of 2020, when I quit Optimal, I really wasn't sure that I was ever going to train again. I was like, it wasn't everything that I thought it should be at the time. And I just knew, I needed a break, number one, but I also knew if I was going to continue doing it, I had to do it differently.
Yeah.
So once I finally, prayed about it a lot, talked to God, I was like, I feel like this is what I'm meant to do, but I don't know how to do it. And it was at that time that I started trying to find another space to call home and another way to, reach my clients and to be in person without feeling completely burnt out. So I started with my groups again. I was on the west side at a gym called Be Strong. And they were great over there, showed me a new kind of structure for what personal training could look like as far as the hourly rate goes.
Yeah.
And, if you don't use it, that's fine. Like you come in, you pay, whenever you're there. And it's not this big, you work for me and this is, I'm dictating your hours. So it wasn't the whole employee relationship thing, which I didn't feel like I needed at the time because I had the experience to build my own clientele. So when I experienced that, I think it really opened my eyes to all the things that are possible. So I hopped around to a couple different gyms that kind of had that same structure, and I just never really felt at home anywhere. I like a very clean facility. A lot of places do not really have that standard. So that was something that was super frustrating to me. Sometimes just the inconsistency of the equipment or the space available or whatever was just really it just didn't feel like what I wanted for my clients and the experience that I wanted
Yeah.
for my clients coming into an unintimidating environment that's always clean, that just feels welcoming. I just didn't really find that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of egos
Oh, for
in
sure.
the fitness
100%.
industry
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
in gyms especially.
Yes.
So dealing with that too and trying to kind of navigate those dynamics was really hard
Yeah.
as well. And I was just like, you know what, not that I could do this better, but I thought I could do it differently.
For
And
sure.
that's why I started looking, at spaces on my own. I'm like, hey, I think I can do this. And if I'm going to do it, now's the time.
Yeah.
And it kind of just snowballed from there. And Lord provided, I don't know how it happened, but it
Yeah.
all happened fairly quickly. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, you kind of talked about it a little bit, like what really makes Foundations Fitness unique.
I think it's mostly the trainers there all understand that we're working together. We all want what's best for our clients, and we all know that there's plenty of people to help. I always say we're not competing, we're collaborating.
Yeah.
And I never feel like, sometimes you walk in and you feel like, oh, is that trainer going to steal my client? Or is that, do I have to worry about competing with this
Yeah.
person for this certain clientele? And you don't really get that at Foundations. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that our trainers are so diverse that
Yeah.
like when somebody comes in or when somebody, contacts us online and they're like, hey, I'm looking for XYZ. And I'm like, I know the perfect person for you because they have a certain skill set and, it's what this person is looking for. And it really is all about what's best for the client and making
Yeah.
sure that we pair them with somebody that's going to be beneficial and the best fit for them to help them, get the best results.
Yeah, well said. I mean, obviously, I'm a trainer at Foundations, and I can agree. I think we have a good group of trainers that, collaborate. We don't view each other as competition, and that's been great because you don't see that at a lot of gyms. Like there is a lot of competition at other gyms. But something I wrote down was the community. I think Foundations has a really good community. Kind of talk about the community at Foundations.
Yeah, I think trying to make sure that we are supporting one another. So whether that's encouraging, one of my clients to bring their kids to a youth fitness class or, attend one of Anna Kate's free boot camps on the weekend or something like that. I think that speaks to, I don't have to worry about you stealing my clients. So I feel free to, kind of share, what we have going on and know that everybody's got, resources that we can share and things that we can share together that makes everything work together a little bit more efficiently. And I think our clientele overall feel welcome when
Yeah.
they come in. I know a lot of my clients know your name and
Yeah.
they feel comfortable like asking Trainer Dave for a spot, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I think that's something that again is just super hard to find because usually most people would probably be intimidated by you if they didn't really know you.
Yeah.
And I think trying to get to know, other trainers' clients and saying hello and being on a first name basis and things like that, it seems simple and it seems like kind of elementary, but you don't get that in a lot of other spaces.
No. I think you have a really good base of clients that are just members that work out there that are super friendly. And I think Sundays you guys all live together and it looks just like a community. I think that's rare to find at a lot of gyms.
Yeah, and those are my girls. Those are the really the foundation of what built my gym is knowing that I had that core group of women who supported me and who believed in me and are still there to this day,
Yeah.
and they've been with me they've been all over this town following me, and now they're still here and they're a big part of who we are and why we've been able to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. How long has Foundations Fitness been in business for?
We celebrated 2 years in June, so about 2.5 years now.
Nice. Is there any reason why you named it your business Foundations Fitness?
Yeah, so actually originally it was Foundations Faith and Fitness because I felt like the Lord really led me to pursue this, and I wanted to kind of, have a nod to that. But originally Foundations was because I truly believe that habits are the foundation of literally everything that you want to achieve in life. So whether it's personal, business, physical transformation, like there are big rocks that we need to have in place. And so that was, this is your foundation, this is what you do, and then anything we have on top of that is great, but you need those foundational habits to have success in any area of life.
Yeah, that's awesome. How many trainers do you currently have at Foundations?
I think about 12 right now. It kind of fluctuates from time to time, but for the most part we've got about 12 that are pretty consistent.
Yeah, so the thing that I think is really cool and unique about Foundations is We're not W-2 employees. Everybody's running their own business, which it's kind of rare to see in the Wichita area with gyms. Like, yeah, you might be a 1099, but you still got to be underneath the brand. You still got to wear that brand shirt. Whereas Foundations doesn't really require that. It literally is just, pay rent, and then you can kind of do your own thing, as long as you're respectful and whatnot. So I got like, why do you have it set up that way, having trainers as more so as 1099s instead of employees?
The biggest reason is I don't want to manage people.
Yeah.
I that's not really my. It's never been my goal. My goal for Foundations from the beginning was to provide a space where trainers could come and run their business the way they see fit, because I feel like that gives them the best chance for success. Number one, the best, guard against burnout, I guess you would call it, because you're not forced to do things that you aren't in line with your vision or aren't in line with your goals. So allowing trainers to come in and to express themselves however they need to reach their, ideal client or whatever that looks like. And for the most part, I feel like we attract trainers that already have a clientele built up. They already know what they need to do, and it doesn't make sense for them to go to work for somebody else and have them take a percentage of their
Yeah.
income, or have them, because they already know what they need to do.
Right.
And when I was, in my transitional phase, like I was looking for the same thing. I'm like, I don't want somebody to tell me what to do. I just want a space to train my
Yeah,
clients. Like, that's all I
absolutely.
need,
Yeah.
because I already know what to do, and I don't need somebody to hold my hand and to tell me how to do
Right.
things. And I think that was missing here in Wichita, and trying to
Absolutely.
fill that void was kind of the original goal. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of my reasoning behind that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything in specific that you look for when onboarding a trainer, when somebody reaches out about, renting your space?
Having a clientele already is a big part of that. I also look for, what time they're training clients, because as you know, we have the same busy times as any other gym.
Yeah,
5 to 7 in
yeah.
the morning, 5 to 7 in the evening. That's typically our busiest time. So right now, especially since we are, pretty close to capacity at some times, it's going to be more about when are you training your clients. But one of the bigger things is, are you teachable? Number one, are you coachable? If you need help, are you asking? Even if you are a new trainer, how quickly have you built up your business? Different things like that. When I meet with a trainer, values are a big thing for me. So making sure that we're not gonna be butting heads as far
Right.
as like, hey, don't play curse words on my Bluetooth
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's little things, but those little things really make a big difference to me, because if our values aren't in line, again, you're gonna have that, the headbutting and the egos and
Yeah.
everything else. So aligning values are a really big thing that I look for when I'm onboarding trainers.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so I gotta ask, would you just take anybody as a trainer? Because I've heard it gets kind of like the trainers interviewing the gym owner. And I'm sure there's some gym owners that might be just so desperate for the money to just because of the trainer is paying rent. So do you feel like you would just take about anybody, or are you kind of specific with who you take?
No, like I said, I want them to at least have values that align, and have a track record of success. So,
Yeah.
and whether you're trained at a big box gym or not, it really doesn't matter to me. What matters is, again, those values aligning, and are you respectful, and do I see you fitting well within this community? That being said, I haven't interviewed a ton of trainers that don't seem like a good fit. But I think we naturally attract
Yeah.
people. When your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So
Right.
whenever we set these expectations, and they see how we operate, and they know who I am, via social media, like, you just attract a certain type of person, I think.
Yeah. If you had a new trainer that like has never had any experience that wants to train at Foundations, would you still take them? Would you recommend it, or would you maybe tell them to go a different route?
It really depends on their circumstances. First of all, right now, I tell them to take my new trainer mentorship,
Yes, there you go.
because I think that's super important and a really good way to have a springboard. But for a lot of trainers, it's really hard to jump straight into personal training and not have any other type of income.
Yeah.
And as a personal training studio, we're not a 24/7 access gym, or we're not, one of those places that's just going to hand you clients. Like,
Right.
I have to see a track record of success, and I have to know that if I give you a client, you're going to keep it. And we do have people, apply for personal training all the time via our website. But if I'm not sure that you can handle that,
Right.
like, it's probably not a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So brand new trainers, that's hard to say. It really depends on what they're looking for as far as income stream. Do you have a part-time job that can float you until we can help you build your clientele, or do you have something that you have in place that's gonna with a structure or a spouse that can support you in the meantime, or
Right.
whatever that looks like. So it kind of really depends on the trainer's personal situation, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. What is your favorite part about being a gym owner?
Walking in and seeing a full gym of people that are all working with somebody different and enjoying themselves. And when that place is full, it sometimes it's stimulus overload, but
Yeah,
other
for
times
sure.
I'm like, this is absolutely amazing.
Right.
And just to see that and to know that like people enjoy training there and want to be a part of that community, I think is super special. So
Yeah.
that's what fills my heart up when I'm in there and
Right.
it's full. Yeah.
That's awesome. What about least favorite part? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I think communication is hard. We try and there's people communicate in different ways, when there's, 12 different trainers and two tenants and,
Yeah.
just a bunch of moving parts. Sometimes it's hard to communicate all the things that need to be communicated. But I think that's something that I try really hard to. I'm an over communicator, so I feel like I do a good job, but sometimes I wonder, I'm like, am I doing good enough, or am I supporting, or am I communicating the way I should? And I think that's probably the hardest part, is just trying to meet everybody where they're at, and the way that they want to be communicated with is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll talk a little bit more about your gym. What would you say? What are some important things to consider? Like, what were some things that you considered when you were looking to open up your gym, like real estate wise?
As far as a physical location goes, I was really looking for somewhere centrally located in Wichita,
Yeah,
because I did
absolutely.
have people on the west side and
Right.
the east side. And so I was like, hey, let's meet in the middle. I
Yeah.
know you guys will follow me anywhere, but I would love for it to be a little bit more convenient for everybody. So that central location was super important to me. I also feel like downtown is really thriving right now in Wichita, so that was a
Yeah.
big part of my decision, especially looking in the Douglas Design District. Was it's expanding. They're really trying hard to clean up that area. So it was really something that they're developing, and so I wanted to get on that ground floor, because I think eventually like that's going to be a big hub for everything.
Right.
So that was a big part of it, but really I looked at probably 6 or 7 different buildings before I landed on where we're at currently. And when I walked into that space, like
Yeah.
I just knew and I could see it, like, and it was
Yeah.
really crazy. I walked in the back door and I remember going, oh my gosh, like this is
Yeah.
it. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. It was kind of like a wedding dress. You kind of just know
Right.
when you see it. So
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. I think Foundations is in a great location, being centrally located. It's funny. I remember Tyler actually told me the story. I think he said like absolutely not when he saw the location, because from what I understand, it was pretty trashed.
Yeah, it required a lot of work. It required a lot of work, but I don't know. I didn't see any of that. All I saw was the end product in my mind.
Yeah, the end product is great. Actually, do you know what that location was before?
It's been several things, and I've heard a lot of things through the grapevine. So how many of it's what's true and what's not, I
Yeah.
don't really know. But I think originally it was a clothing store, and then it was like a coffee, like brewing place of some kind, or like roasting place, I don't know. And then right before we got it, it had actually been storage, and so the building was actually split in two down the middle. And so they had just recently taken out that wall and cleared out all of the stuff that was in there, like hundreds of year old stuff.
Gotcha.
And then right before we took it over, it was actually an event venue. Like they were holding wedding receptions
Gotcha.
in the front part of that area, which was
Interesting.
completely mind blowing to me, because
Yeah.
it was a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been a lot of things.
Okay.
But I don't think it's ever been a gym, so
Okay.
we're the first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I heard the rumor it used to be a car dealership or something like, or car.
Yes, that too. It used to be a garage. What do you call it? Like a
Mechanic shop.
Yes,
Yeah,
it used to be a
yeah,
mechanic
yeah.
shop. Yep. So we had oil all over the
Yeah.
floors. Yeah, that was a big part of fixing the fixing
Wow.
the flooring for us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. How long did that take for you to find your location, would you say?
Probably about 4 or 5 months, I would say. We went on, and I had actually toured a few buildings with Anna Kate at the time. And then my personal friend, Ashley, who ended up moving to Colorado, we were all kind of looking at the same time. And when that kind of fell through, I think we waited a couple of months, and then I was like, no, I want to do this on my own. And that's when we finally kind of put full throttle, and
Yeah.
we're like, yeah, let's do this. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you think it's important, like you started off as a trainer before opening up a gym, like do you think that was important for you to have that experience as a trainer before opening up a gym?
I think it really depends on where you see your income streams coming, like I opened that gym with the full knowledge that if I needed to, I could float it on my own. Like I know that, money wise, I could make this make sense. And if I needed to, I could train this amount of hours, or, my online training would supplement, this amount or whatever. So I think for me, it's all about where your passion lies and what you see for yourself, because some people are managers, like that's what they do.
Yeah,
So if you
right.
see yourself as a facility manager, and you have the networking abilities and the ties in the fitness industry to bring in your own trainers and float that income, then great. For me, it was never about not training in person anymore, because I knew that was something that I was always going to do. Like
Yeah.
I wanted this space so I could continue to train my clients, and the fact that I have others here with me is just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So, but I think it depends. For me, this is the vision that I had for it originally, but I don't think it has to be that way. So it depends on what you're looking for personally.
Yeah, no, I think it is beneficial that you have that experience, because you know what it's like to be in a not sustainable place as a trainer, and
That's true. Yeah.
being able to provide that for trainers, I think it's
Yeah,
big time.
I have a lot of empathy, and I can see the way that I've structured it. It helps me to have that background of knowing the grind and knowing how it feels to have somebody take 50% of my income, or whatever that looks like trying to be relatable and show people like, hey, this is what I can do for you. Yeah, I do think that was important at the
Yeah.
time.
I was also going to ask, like, you kind of talked about a little bit about your foundation of clients, but like, do you think you should have a clientele before opening up a gym?
Again, it kind of depends on what your income streams look like and where you foresee that those sources coming from. Again, for me, it was always part of the plan, so it was very important for me to have that base of clients built up before I opened my gym. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll dive into your powerlifting background. First question is like, why powerlifting? What makes it special that makes you passionate about powerlifting?
Yeah, so I started right after I had my big transformation. I started bodybuilding, and I did that for about 4 years, and I got burnt out pretty quickly on that because I like to eat. And
Yeah.
but one of my bodybuilding coaches at the time actually had me squatting, benching, deadlifting just for hypertrophy reasons, and I learned that I was kind of pretty strong. And he was like, "Hey, why don't you just do a powerlifting meet in your off season, and just keep," because he knew like I'm an athlete, I want to compete. Having that carrot dangling in front of me was something that was super helpful for me, just to stay consistent and make sure I have a purpose when I'm in the gym every day. And I absolutely fell in love with it from day one, from the first time I competed. And I continued to bodybuild a little bit after that, but then when the cutting became tremendously harder, and I was just really burnt out with counting every single macro and every single gram of food,
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let's make this shift. And I think it was kind of a slow takeover of powerlifting for me. I didn't really feel it happening, but it did. And then when people saw me having success with it, and I realized, like, number one, women need to be strength training, like,
Yeah,
and they need to be
absolutely.
lifting heavy. And most women are not confident under the bar, and they're not confident in the weight room training by themselves. And that was something that was it became a passion for me, was just helping women be more confident. So powerlifting was just kind of the natural avenue for that, where like, hey, this helps us stay accountable. We can compete together as a team. So that community aspect that I love, it kind of brought all of that into one thing. And the powerlifting community is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You've been to a powerlifting meet, right?
I have, yes. Went to was it the one at Foundations?
Oh yes, okay. So the Ladies of
Yeah,
Iron,
yes, yes.
which is unlike any other meet because it's
Yeah.
all women. But at any powerlifting meet you go to, everybody's going to be screaming for whoever's on the platform.
is
Like
true,
it's not
yeah.
about like I want to beat that guy or whatever. Like yeah, if you're competing at somebody in your weight class, sure you want to win, but like
Yeah.
we're never rooting against anybody, even at the collegiate
Yeah.
level. So
Yeah.
it's really unlike any other sport that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah. No, I heard the same thing. I mean, I think Stephanie Carter was on here, and she's a power lifter, and that was the two things she said is like, number one, like there's a little bit more, I think, flexibility in powerlifting. Like you don't have to be so dialed in on your macros like bodybuilding.
Yep.
And then I've heard I've heard it, and I've seen it firsthand. Just the powerlifting community seems to be like a really cool thing here in Wichita.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you are actually the head powerlifting coach at Friends University currently, and that's a full-time gig too.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would not have been able to take on that job had it not been for several more trainers coming on at foundations, because I was approached about that position in November of the year I opened foundations, and I was like, absolutely not.
Right.
There's no way this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then in January, I had a transition of a lot of trainers coming on, and it was kind of like God was saying, okay, I provided a way. Now you can, go and do this thing that I actually want you to do. And I've always wanted to coach younger athletes, because I feel like my late high school, college years were full of really bad choices.
Yeah.
And I didn't have somebody, speaking life into me and speaking, truth and saying, hey, like, make better decisions. Like, don't. And for me, it's like, don't go down the road that I went down. You can start your life way ahead if you just, make some better decisions during those really formative years. And that's always something I wanted to kind of pass on. I had a great cross country coach as a high schooler, and that made a big impact on me. And so wanting to reach those kids at a younger age, instead of getting them, when they're 35, 40, already in my gym, that was super important to me. And I just felt like when the Lord provided all these trainers, he was just like saying, here, this is where you need to be and what you need to do. So
yeah, and I think that's awesome that you're not so tied to your gym, that you can kind of pursue that passion of being a college powerlifting coach.
Yeah. And I think it helps me stay excited for my gym as well, because I'm not there, 47 hours a day.
Yeah.
I can step aside and I can go do, I can go pour into them and then come back and pour into my people at the gym too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you talked to, like, you're mainly working with college kids at Friends, and then your clientele at the gym is more so general pop. You would probably like older, women.
Yeah, my ideal client is women, probably in their mid to late 30s and onward up to probably 50s, 60s. But it's women that are tired of diet culture. They're tired of always trying to be smaller, always trying to be less. I kind of had taken a step away from clients that want to lose X amount of pounds or whatever. Like, if that's your goal, I've got great trainers for you. Like, there are trainers that focus on weight loss and that's their jam, and they're really, really good at it. For me, it's all about building that confidence in the gym, and that's why I enjoy working with powerlifters and women who enjoy strength training.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I was thinking, I think you really nailed that ideal client down for yourself, because I've never really seen you working with a young athlete or working with a male. Like, it's really, you stick to that niche, that specialty of yours.
Yeah, you learn as a trainer who you enjoy working with, and then you do more of that.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the beginning years, I think it's important to work with all people and learn those skills and learn how to train different types of people. But in that, you also learn who you enjoy training and who fills you up and what sessions you look forward to and what sessions you're like, oh crap, I got so-and-so coming in,
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't have that anymore, because, I got to build, my niche around what I enjoy training.
That's awesome. How different is training college athletes from your women?
Oh, very different. Most of the kids that I get at Friends have never been on a consistently good program, and they see results very, very quickly.
Yeah.
They also don't have the stress levels of the women that I have in the gym. They don't have families yet. They don't have a full-time job. They don't, so it's very different. They have challenges, but they're not the same at all. My kids, are struggling with time management and, stress in a different way. Like, how do we manage stress, in regards to classes and, a part-time job and whatever. So it's different. But I mean, the same, I find myself saying the same things to them that I say to my actual clients. So there's things that overlap, obviously, but it's fun to see the kids have the success that they have when they are consistent and when they do work their butts off in the gym, and that's been really fun for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in a similar situation as you are with being a strength coach at Newman, and I think that's a nice thing about being in that college setting is, like, the kids aren't paying you, so you do. I mean, if you stay there for 4 years, you do get them for 4 years. Whereas I think you might see a little bit more inconsistencies with the general pop because, vacations or, maybe they lose their job, something like that. So I think that is also a nice part about college is the consistency is a lot easier there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I set those expectations at the beginning of the year for my kids. I'm like, hey, we practice 4 times a week. I expect you to be there. And, it's part of their scholarship. It's part of what pays for their school. Absolutely. So they better be consistent.
Yeah, and it's like the athlete is working for you in the college setting, whereas kind of in the private sector, we're working for the client. Like if somebody walks in late, we can't really punish them for
Right.
that. So.
Yep.
So actually, and I wanted like you're talking about your background in powerlifting, like because you're pretty competitive. If you don't mind, like talk about some of your accolades as a powerlifter.
So I've been to Raw Nationals 2 times now. I was in the 48 kilogram weight class. The first time I went, I believe, was back in 2021, I think. I don't know. All these years run together now. In the 48 kilogram weight class, I was just outside of top 10 there. I did win bench nationals that year. I'm what they call a bench specialist, which means absolutely nothing. But this past year, when I went in 2023, I placed top 10 in the 48 kilogram weight class. And that was it was a very hard prep. It was a very difficult time for me, only because I was opening the gym, and I had a lot on my plate, and I was taking over this powerlifting program at Friends. So it was not ideal whatsoever, but it also opened my eyes that I'm like, hey, I don't need to be in the 48 kilogram weight class anymore. I'm a full grown woman, and no full grown woman should weigh 105 pounds. So I've made the transition now, and I'm competing in the 114 division. But I've competed at the highest level at USAPL powerlifting, and that feels good to say. I don't think it's my goal anymore, knowing how much work it takes. It's nice to be able to tell my kids at the school, like, hey, I've been there, I get it, I know how much work it takes, and to still be competing, and for them to see, this is how it's done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I've seen like some of your kids, like they'll come up to cheer you on, like when you compete.
Yeah, my last meet, they came up and spotted and loaded for me, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
They got to stand there and yell at me the whole time, and I got to have them there to pump me up, and that was really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we'll talk more about the coaching philosophy. So what is your approach when you get a new client in the door?
Really just getting to know them personally. I think a lot of people say they want to lose weight, or they want this, or they want that, and then when you get to know them a little more, you understand like what they're really looking for. And for a lot of them, it's self-confidence, or it's community, or it's I want to feel better, or move better, or be out of pain, or whatever it is. So trying to get them to know them more on an individual basis. And usually, I'm not huge on like movement screenings or anything like that. Like I'll have them come to a class, I'll have them start moving, and we just kind of go from there. And I can modify literally anything at this point, and so it's easy for me to tweak something here or there if they need a regression or a progression or whatever. So I kind of just throw them in, and I let the community kind of just envelope them. I feel like
that's cool. I think I've seen you bring in some new clients, and it seems like the other girls in your group kind of take care of that whoever that new client is. So
yeah, and it's the same thing at Friends. When we have a recruit on campus, I'm like, hey, I want you to hang out with the team. Like I don't matter. Like it's about the team, and it's the same thing at the gym. Like I don't matter. It's about you being feeling welcome in this community and having this safe space to go.
So we kind of talked about like you do a lot of groups versus one-on-ones. Which do you prefer and why?
I like a little bit of both, and it's always kind of been that way. Groups, I think, bring a natural energy. When you have more people in the building at the same time, like you just feel more energy.
Right.
But one-on-ones, you get to know your client really intimately, and I've had clients, for going on 8 years now, and they're some of my closest friends now because we just spend so much one-on-one time together, and I appreciate both sides of that. One-on-one and large group training.
Yeah, same here. How many hours a week do you train clients?
I'm at about 12 right now. Yeah, so and that's kind of my sweet spot, especially considering what I've got going on at Friends now. That kind of ebbs and flows sometimes, and it's dependent on again the time of year. And during the summer, I feel like I could take on a little bit more because I have a little bit more headspace without the kids on campus.
Yeah.
But I try to limit myself in that regard.
Nice. What does a typical day look like for you as a gym owner?
I'm up around 6 o'clock. I do my devotional. I read in the morning because I know if I don't do it then, I'm not going to do it. So I do my reading. I do my devotional. I try to post on social media first thing because that's another thing that just gets pushed to the wayside if I don't do it in the morning. And then after that, I'm typically working out sometime between 9 and 11. I've got some morning clients that, I try to work in there sometimes. And then in the middle of the day, I'm usually programming or working on something, administratively. And then I've got practice from 2 to 5 at friends. And then I'm back at the gym for my evening groups and clients at that time. So I'm home by usually 7:30 or 8 o'clock at the latest now, which is awesome.
Yeah, still a pretty full day. I mean, how do you avoid burnout?
I going back to how many hours I do. I've come to learn what my limits are, and even when I have open hours or open time, I don't try and shove as many things in there as I can like I used to. I'm like, oh look, I've got an hour free. I need to put a client there, which I've tried to train myself like, no, we don't need to do that. We need to be working more efficiently instead of just more. So learning my limits was a big one, but that's taken a lot of time. And even now I screw that up sometimes and I take on more than I should. But gratitude has been a big one for me. And when I am feeling overwhelmed or burnout and stepping back and going, oh my gosh, we built this community, like you built this thing. And when, and we're actually gonna go into this in the business mentorship, but I found this paper that I had written, and I was probably it must have been 2016 or 17 when I was still optimal. And we did this exercise called My Ideal World. And you wrote down literally from the moment you woke up until when you went to bed what your world looks like. What are you doing for a career? What do you enjoy, free time? Where do you see yourself living? Like all of these things. And it's amazing when I go back and read it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I do have my own facility now. And I am, there are trainers here that I'm helping develop. And there's so many things that are now real that at that time was just like a pipe dream,
Sure.
And so that's really crazy for me to think about. And when I think about those things, it helps me kind of ground myself. And then beyond that, it's really taking one day at a time. I used to really struggle with depression and anxiety because I would get so far ahead of myself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this the rest of my life, or oh my gosh, I have to, I need to be at this place by this time or whatever. I really do try to just, what do I need to do today? Or what do I need to do for the next hour? Or where are my feet right now? Let's stay there. And I think that's been super helpful for me. And then taking time off.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big one because I know we all struggle with that.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I think I can relate to that too. I mean, reflecting on the journey, seeing how far you've come, it's really rewarding. And taking things one step at a time, one session at a time, as opposed to thinking about the next 2 or 3 days. I think it can go a long way.
Yep.
Do you have any hobbies outside of training?
Somebody asked me this yesterday, and it was really hard question because I love powerlifting and I love my gym. I love watching sports. Football's a big one, so this is my favorite time of year because literally almost every night you can watch a football game. So that's fun for me. Me and my husband love to go camping when we can. Road trips with our dogs. That's a big one. Yeah, sports of any kind, really. I just love sports.
Yep. That's awesome. So I'm going to talk about online training next, because you are an online trainer. Why did you start doing online training?
I wanted to reach people that I couldn't necessarily train in person because I felt like I could still help them even though maybe they weren't living in Wichita or whatever. And when you first start and you've got friends and family that you can help and you've got all these different avenues, and I wanted to kind of exploit that. And I felt like it was the most flexible of all the options, so I can work on my online training when it works for my schedule, which is really nice. There are certain things that I have, I check in with my clients on Monday mornings, that's non-negotiable. Everything else, when I'm programming their next block or when I'm, doing whatever else is required of that, I have the flexibility to do that when I'm able to work into my schedule. And for me, the flexibility of online training has been one of the best things about it. But during the pandemic is when I really, doubled down on that because we couldn't be in person. And that was a huge time for me to sit down and work on my systems and work on my processes and figure that out for, and it's something that's almost on autopilot for me now because I love programming. It's something that's very, it just comes second nature to me. I can sit down, I'm like a savant, I'm just and it's super easy. And so it's something that I enjoy, and I foresee it always being a part of my business plan for sure.
That's awesome, man. Do you feel like just in-person training, do you think that's a sustainable long-term career, or do you think having the multiple streams of income, like online training, is essential?
I think it really depends on your personality. I'm the type of personality that I need some alone time and I need some quiet time. And so for me, doing 8 to 10 sessions in person now just
Yeah.
isn't something that I see as sustainable for me. But for some people it is. I know you're more of an introvert, so I don't know how much of the in person really takes it out of you.
Yeah.
But for me, it takes it out of me a
It
lot. And
does.
even though
Yeah.
I'm kind of an extrovert,
Yeah.
I think more and more I'm becoming an introvert, but
Yeah.
it still takes a lot out of you. So,
Yes.
but for some people, they get life from other people, and those types of things, really
Right.
like they take from other people's energy. And so I really think it's a personality thing. Is it doable like financially? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like I could probably be making a lot more money if I just trained 8 hours in person every single
Right.
day. But for me personally, it wasn't sustainable from a personality standpoint.
For sure. So you're still doing in-person training as well as online training. How well do you think like the in-person training complements your skills as an online trainer?
I tell this to every trainer who wants to go into the online space. I feel like you need to do in person
Oh,
before you go
100%.
online
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you have to have that, like there's just something different about being with a person in person and seeing them move and knowing how to correct them before you just hop online and you're like, here, just do XYZ. Like for most people, it's not that easy. Again, it probably depends on your clientele or who you plan on training or how you plan on training them. But for me, a lot of my online clientele is powerlifters.
Right.
So if I hadn't had that in person like experience with my powerlifting community and the foundation, the girls that I built up there, like I don't feel like I would be a good online trainer for my powerlifters because I go in and I'll do video analysis for literally every single powerlifting client that I have, but I wouldn't be able to know those cues or to help them, because inline online training, you have to communicate very effectively to do the same thing that you would be able to do in person. And even now, like if I have an online client who is struggling with something, like I'll have them come in person. I'm like,
Yeah.
I will show you in 15 minutes like
Yeah.
what it's taken me a month to try and tell you online. So it's still like there's still limitations for online training, but I feel like you have to have that in-person knowledge to
Yeah.
even be able to fathom what it's like to train somebody online.
No, 100%. Do you always see yourself continuing to train in person, or do you think you'll ever go completely online?
It's a possibility that I'll go completely online. I have dreams of owning an RV and not having a house.
Nice. Yeah.
I haven't got my husband to jump on board with that dream yet, but it's something that I would love to do at some point is travel full time and be able to experience more of the country and just have that flexibility. So I see myself at some point, but probably not anytime
Yeah.
soon.
Nice. Nice. We're going to talk a little bit more about the business side next. Like, how do you go about finding clients? Is that word of mouth, referrals, social media?
Yeah, I think if you're a good trainer, referrals are always your number one. I do find a lot of possible clients online because I feel like they resonate with my content because I'm really good about being authentic in that space and being able to relate to people there. So I do have a lot of people that reach out online and are like, hey, I saw your post, I really liked it. What's it like to work with you? So I get a lot of my referrals from online avenues as well. But yeah, your clientele, the people that you have, those are your biggest assets, and those are the people who are going to be your cheerleaders. So
Yeah.
obviously a lot of the people that I get are direct referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about your retention. Like, you seem like you got pretty good retention. You've got people that have followed you from, like 3 different gyms. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you go about retaining clients?
You take care of them. You love them. You are consistent. I think a lot of trainers struggle with consistency. And even if I'm not, 100% one day, I'm still going to show up. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big, that's something that you don't see a lot, even in just the professional space these days. We're all about mental health and taking personal days and, oh, sorry, I can't be there, or showing up late even. Like, it's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't. It drives me insane. So just the consistency, I think, is a big part of retention.
Yeah.
And them knowing that them knowing that I'm going to be consistent. Like, they know what to expect. And when you set expectations and then you reach them or even exceed them, like that's when people are going to trust you, and when they know they can trust you, and when you take care of them, they're going to stick around long term.
Yeah, no, very well said. So what about like social media? Like, how important do you think social media is as a trainer slash gym owner?
It's a hard question to answer. I enjoy social media because I'm a very good communicator through written text. I'm really good. I've always been good at writing, so I can convey myself very well via online forms, whether it's video or a post or whatever. Some people are much better in person, and if that's their jam, like I know you go to a lot of networking events and you go to events where you can meet people and be that's not my jam. Like I am terrified of crowds. Like it gives me anxiety. So I think knowing yourself personally and how you communicate best is a big thing. I think social media is a great avenue right now, and it would be hard for me to imagine my business without it and imagine my business growing without it. But if it disappeared tomorrow, like I know I would do what I have to do to go get another client.
Yeah,
like it's
sure.
just it is what it is. But
Yeah.
it's been a tremendous asset for me. I also think it can be something that really holds some clients back or holds some trainers back because they are scared to post the wrong thing or they are scared that what they're going to say isn't right or whatever. And I think that comes from just that imposter syndrome that a lot of new trainers have and not being able to stay in their lane and be like, hey, this is what I know and this is who I train. And that's a very real concern of a lot of new trainers, I think.
Yeah, well said. So we'll start to wrap it up. Kind of go into some advice. Like, what tips/advice do you have for someone who wants to become a trainer?
Get as much experience as you can. I think that's the biggest thing. Learning from people who have been there, done that, or are doing what you want to be doing, I think is something that's severely underutilized. These kids go to school and they get their personal training certification and they're like, now what? And it's like, well, you actually need to know how to do the job, which is, again, 90% of what you need to know is not in a textbook. So gain as much experience as possible. Surround yourself with the right people. I think is a big one. I think early on in my training career, there were a lot of people who were very close-minded about how they wanted to help you and what information they wanted to provide. And I think that really just comes from a lack mindset, and for me, I think there's more than enough people to help in this world.
Absolutely.
Like there's more than enough for everybody. And our goal as trainers should be that everybody is happy and healthy. And so I know I can't help everybody in the world. So we need more trainers to do that job. So being open-minded and asking for help, I think is a big one.
For sure. What about somebody who wants to become a gym owner? What advice do you have?
Have a plan. And that plan's going to change, obviously. I had a really great business mentor. Her name is Jamie Garnett. Shout out Jamie. She just helped me really work through like all the what ifs, because I think that's a big concern when you're opening any type of brick and mortar is all the what ifs. And even then, there's still going to be things that you couldn't foresee. And we had plumbing issues when I the first 6 months, it was awful. But definitely being able to, for me, it was being able to say, hey, worst case scenario, can I float this thing? And if the answer is yes, then I think you have a pretty good business plan. And if it's not, and I think there's something to be said about forcing yourself to be successful and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. But I don't know if that's a sustainable long-term business plan. So having a plan and being able to think through some of those higher level or things you might not have thought of. So seeking some perspective, I think, would be a very good idea. Yeah.
Is there anything you've learned the hard way that you would have done differently?
I've thought about this one because my friend Ashley just opened a gym in Colorado, and she asked me the same thing a few months ago, and I don't know that I would do anything differently. Again, I think we had a really solid plan going in, and because of the way that I run my business and because of the heart behind my business, I felt like it was really easy for me to get people to jump on board. So I feel like we just had a good solid plan from the beginning. So I don't know that I would change anything really.
Nice. So I do want to ask, so like in your opinion, do you think you can like make more money just being a 1099 renting gym space, or do you think being a gym owner? Because I think I've talked with Anna Kate about this. I know she's played around with the idea of opening up a gym, and I know a lot of trainers get scared by the overhead. What are your thoughts there?
I think because you don't have to be there to make money, the income potential
Is
for
higher.
as a business owner is higher. But it also depends on how much work you want to do, because it's a lot of work up front. People say residual income, but is it really residual income? When you have to work as hard as you do to keep it and to maintain it, or when a trainer leaves, are you going to replace them? Or for me, I have a couple tenants. Like, what am I doing when so and so leaves? There's always something. So I think it depends on the type of stress that you're willing to be under. And what you really enjoy doing. Like, some people aren't born to be managers. Some people aren't. They don't want to do that. And if you're born to be a coach and a trainer, and that's what you really enjoy doing, and you can fill up your schedule, with 6 hours a day, working the way you want to work, like, I think there's a lot of revenue to be had there. And your income, potential is really unlimited as a trainer as well, because if you're in high demand, like, you can charge what you want to charge, and that's something that I think some trainers don't understand. Like, we have to continue to develop. And I think our industry also has a very we don't like to raise our prices. We don't like to, like, when your schedule is packed, like, you shouldn't continue to add more. You shouldn't continue to, give the same price. Like, you should be increasing your prices if you're under high demand. Like, that's so I think that's something that's not typical in our industry that needs to be talked about a little more too.
Yeah, well said. They say that 90% of trainers won't make it past their first year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was just doing a little bit of research on this too for the business mentorship, but I think they said like 80% after 2 years, they're not even there. And I think that's very real, only because of what we've talked about, is that you don't know how to run a business, and you need that knowledge to be able to, unless you're, and some trainers are phenomenal and they're going to grow despite themselves, not because of themselves, which is great. But if you don't have a plan for that, it's a really quick road to burnout, I think.
Yeah. And what do you think we can do to fix that turnover rate?
Collaborating more, like you're doing here. I think that's a big one, because I think a lot of trainers glorify the grind, and that's not something that I think should be glorified. I think we need to glorify taking care of ourselves and our own mental health a little bit more, but working together, again, that collaboration over competition. I think not feeling like this industry is so cutthroat would really help a lot of people out.
I agree. And I think, like you said, elevating our standards, like, it's okay to raise prices. It's okay to, not take on everybody, because that is kind of the mentality, I think, of gym owners and trainers, is it's the split days. It's that, 8 sessions a day mentality. And I think people get burnt out pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of that is not working with your ideal client or people that you actually enjoy training. Which in the beginning phases, obviously you gotta do what you gotta do. But once you develop that, and once you learn who you enjoy training, I think you should do more of what makes you happy, for sure.
Yeah. So I think I already know the answer to this question, but I ask everybody is, do you view other gyms or trainers as competition? Why or why not?
Nope, absolutely not. There's 500,000 people in the metropolitan area here in Wichita alone, and everybody needs help being happier and healthier. So.
Yep, well said. What about, do you believe Wichita is oversaturated with gyms?
Absolutely not. Nope, for the exact same reason. There's still more people that need to be helped, and we need to figure out how to reach them. So.
Yeah. What future goals do you have for yourself and Foundations Fitness?
Oh, man. My goal right now is to just stay in the moment. So I'm actually trying to actively not that I don't want to pursue bigger and better things, but at the same time trying to appreciate the moment that I'm in and the community that we have built. So that's my biggest goal currently, is to be proud of who we are and what we're doing here. In the very near future, I want even more collaboration. I want even more community at Foundations. Sometimes we're just ships passing in the night there, and it's hi, how you doing? And I think there could be a lot more community, even more than there is now. So.
Last question is, where can we find out more about Foundations Fitness?
My website is katejonescoaching.com. We have all of our services there. You can also fill out a online training or a personal training request form there, and that'll let us get to know you a little bit better if you're looking for a personal trainer. We've also got the new coach business boot camp coming up as well, which will be a big one for new trainers. But yeah, you can find all of that on our website, and we're on all the socials as well, Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you taking the time to come out here and chat. Know you're real busy, but we appreciate it, and a lot of good knowledge in this podcast, and thanks for all you do for the community.
I appreciate you doing what you're doing, Dave.
So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time.